Hi, it's Keith from the Evangelical Free Church Stony Stratford, and we're continuing our series of short talks in the Gospel of Luke, and today we're looking at Luke chapter 17 verses 30 to 37. Jesus has been speaking a lot about his second coming, and one of the things that comes out is that it will be totally unexpected. And he says this thing in the passage we're looking at now. In verse 33, he says this: "Whoever tries to keep his life will lose it, and whoever loses his life will preserve it." Jesus, at another point in his ministry, talks about how a man could aspire to, gain the whole world but lose it. And I think, because people would have known about this or had a knowledge of it, he's probably referring back to someone like Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great took on the greatest and mightiest empire, the superpower of his day, the Persian Empire. And although Macedonia was a small kingdom, he constantly beat his enemies and gained a huge empire. And yet, at the height of all this, he was taken ill and died. And actually, in the end, everything came to nothing. In a sense, we might think of Alexander now and say his achievements were great, but on the other hand, we might think of the folly of all that. What did he actually achieve in the long run? Could he take it with him? No, he couldn't. So what does Jesus say in relation to the verses around that? Well, the first thing he says is, don't waste time. He talks about on that day, not sort of being distracted in any way. As he says here, on that day, no one who's on the roof of his house with his goods inside should go down and get them. Likewise, no one who's in the field should go back for anything. The whole approach is be ready. And then he makes an Old Testament reference, which again, those listening to would have understood very well. It's a very strange little verse, verse 32. Remember Lot's wife. There's a brilliant book called Holiness by the Victorian Bishop J.C. Ryle. And he actually has a chapter on this. And the gist of it is this: as they were fleeing Sodom because the Lord's judgment was coming, Lot's wife looked back. She hankered for the luxuries of that evil place. Her focus was not on the Lord. She would have known about the Lord, but in the end, judgment fell upon her because she looked back, because her priorities were not right. Our heart is not to be focused on worldly things, and that is the gist of these strange verses. And there's another sense in which Jesus is saying, don't try and hold on to what you have no control over. There's a warning in verses 33 to 35. Whoever tries to keep his life will lose it, and whoever loses his life will preserve it. I tell you, on that night, 2 people will be in one bed, one will be taken and the other left. 2 women will be grinding grain together, one will be taken and the other left. Now, this is going back to what we see before, the idea of being ready for Christ's return. There's actually 2 types of people: those who know the Lord and submit to the Lord, and those who don't. And apparently the actual Greek verb here, when it refers to being taken, is taken in judgment. When this happens, things will happen very, very quickly. No one's going to expect it. Like a flash of lightning, which we saw as we looked at the passage last week. It will be quick, it will be sudden. It'll be over in a second. So in the end, Jesus is referring to what's going to happen. And his disciples will ask a very obvious question. Verse 37, "Where, Lord?" they asked. He replied, "Where there is a dead body, There the vultures will gather. Again, that might seem a rather cryptic remark, but I can't help thinking it might refer back to the end of Isaiah, the very last book of the book of Isaiah. It says this. It's been talking about the new heavens and new earth, and it says this: they will go out and look upon the dead bodies of those who rebelled against me. In other words, rebelled against God. Their worm will not die, nor will their fire be quenched, and they will be loathsome to all mankind. Those phrases, the worm will not die and the fire will not be quenched, are again things that Jesus uses in relation to judgment. So I would have been pretty sure that the disciples would have thought of this verse. And there are other verses in the Bible which point to that. Well, what should our response be in the end? Well, 2 Peter chapter 11, chapter 3, verse 11, and the first part of verse 12. Since everything will be destroyed in this way, what kind of people ought you to be? You ought to live holy and godly lives as you look forward to the day of God and speed its coming. It's quite simple. Peter is saying to those early believers, be ready. And the thing I would say to you and tell myself is be ready. The Lord will come again one day. And there's a question, as we've seen earlier. You're either for him or against him. Thank you so much for listening.